Okay, good afternoon. This is going to be our next mini lecture in the series of mini lectures that we've been doing for our class. So this is actually, I think, number 15. That would make sense because I'm logged on here to VIU Learns. This is my platform here that we've been using together, and I wanted to make an update or just kind of a correction, I guess you could say. One of the students a really sharp student who's paying very close attention to the videos, noticed that I made a speaking error when I was talking about the second example sentence here down on the screen. When I was describing it right at the video time of about 6:50, I mentioned that I was talking about the noun phrase and the verb in this second clause here, in this restrictive relative clause, when the common area would close. I made the error and I said that would close is the noun. I actually meant, of course, that would close is the verb. So I just wanted to clear that up in case anybody else had noticed that error. So this is common. Sometimes when I'm even speaking in front of a classroom, I might mean one thing but say another thing. So this sometimes happens to everybody. But one thing you have to realize is that if you have a correction pointed out, all you got to do is say, hey, let's make sure everybody understands this, and then you just move on. So thanks to that student who pointed that out, and let's move on to our next main topic here. So I've got this all prepped up and ready to go. We're going to look at the final types of sentences. So this is sentences level 4.0. We're going to be talking about PLMPs, scoopable phrases, and the semicolon. So first, let's talk about PLMPs. This is an acronym. It means preloading modifying phrases. So these are little chunks of language, little clips of language that we can put at the beginning of a sentence to explain more about the sentence, about the subject, about the verb. So it's kind of a way we can add color, context, and feeling to the beginning of our sentences. That's why we call them preloading modifying phrases. Now, PLMP is a terminology that I came up with myself to try to clearly explain how we can use these little chunks of language. So these short chunks of language are used to preload sentences. So we've got 4 types. Type A is an infinitive verb plus the complement, and then comma and straight into clause 1. So the example, to understand the notes. To understand is the infinitive. The notes is that complement piece that is mentioned over here in the formula. Then you'll notice there's a comma, and then we move right into the main sentence. The students had to read them 3 times. So to understand the notes preloads and tells us more about the students and what their experience was in learning from the notes they read. Okay, type B, we have an ing verb plus the complement, then the comma, and then straight into the first clause of the sentence. Talking loudly to his friend, comma, Bob walked down the long garden path. So talking loudly explains about what Bob was doing on his walk, right? So it's preloading, it's telling us more details. You can see ing verb, and then we've got, in this case, the complement is a prepositional phrase. Moving on. Type C. So type C is a prepositional phrase, then the comma, and then straight into that first clause of the sentence. Example, on the beach, the family went for a walk. Now, I should also mention that this sentence, this sentence that comes after our preloading modifying phrase, this could be any one of our many types of sentences. It could be simple, could be compound, could be complex. So there could be additional clauses coming at the end here, and it wouldn't affect the grammar of the sentence. So we can start to see how sentences can get quite long, right? Because you can have a preloading phrase, then you could have like a very long sentence, like a compound complex sentence that comes after the comma of the preloading phrase. Okay, type D, we have preposition plus ing verb plus complement and then comma. Through investigating the crime scene, comma, they found a clue. And one thing you'll notice is always after the preloading phrase, we need that comma to kind of set it off or separate it from the main sentence or from the main clause. So it's always going to be PLMP, comma, and then the rest of your sentence. Okay, second type here is what we call scoopable phrases. So these are very similar to preloading modifying phrases. The main difference is going to be that they go in the middle of a sentence instead of going at the beginning of a sentence. So scoopable phrases, it's one more way, it's another way that we can add more information. They occur in the middle of sentences, as I just mentioned, and they are surrounded by commas. So that's a very important point. You need commas on both sides. Semicolon, moreover, comma, they can easily be removed from sentences. So that's what we're talking about here. They're additional. Okay, so there are two different kind of places that we can normally find scoopable phrases in a sentence. So placement one, they come directly after the main verb and before the object noun or the prepositional phrase that comes at the end of our sentence. So normally a simple sentence, we know the structure is going to be subject noun, then the main verb, and then if you have a complement at the end after the verb, like a noun that is an object or a prepositional phrase might be there, that's going to come after our main verb. And it actually lives as part of the predicate, right? That predicate is the main verb plus all of its complements, technically. So let's look at an example. So we have, we talked, comma, loudly, comma, into the night. So loudly is the scoopable, and it's just a single word in this case. Placement number two is when you are using a longer sentence, so you have like a compound sentence, for example, you're going to place your scoopable after your fanboy's family member, but before your second subject. So let's see what this looks like here. The explorers trekked up the treacherous icy slope, comma. So that comma is starting our second clause. So there's our fanboy, here's our fanboy member, but now we plug in our scoopable phrase, and notice we have commas surrounding it, right? But they later found, comma, this would lead to their demise. Demise is a synonym for death. Okay, so one more thing to note is that scoopable phrases, they can be a single word, as in our first example, or they can be a short phrase, or they can even be a complete clause. This one here is an example of a complete clause, right? They is our subject within the scoopable phrase. Found is the main verb, and as we know, all we really need for a sentence to be complete is to have that subject and the main verb, or subject and predicate. English sentences need both of those parts, subject and predicate. Okay, so you could have a short phrase in there. Quite often prepositional phrases will also be scoopable, and they can be put into either placement one or placement two. So I'm going to ask you to get comfortable with these first two placements before you try to get more liberal with your use of scoopable phrases. Okay, final little piece for this mini lecture is talking about the dreaded semicolon. Semicolons are a punctuation mark, and they are used to join together complete clauses. Key point there, your clause needs to be complete, which again means you need a subject noun and a predicate, subject and a main verb. Okay, here's the formula. It's very simple. You've got clause one, then your semicolon, and then your second clause, and of course we need the period at the end to end the sentence. Okay, so there are three kind of parameters that need to be met in order for a semicolon to be allowable within a sentence. So let's take a look at what they are. So for a semicolon to be deployed, three truths about that combination of ideas must align. Number one, both clauses need to be complete. They need a subject and a verb. Number two, the ideas must be connected. So they have to be talking about the same general topic or the same topic. In fact, they should be closely linked. And then number three, the clauses must be equal in importance. So as the writer, you're making a choice here when you're using the semicolon. By using it, you're saying, hey, these two clauses, these two sentences that I'm marrying together with a semicolon, they are equal in importance. So let's take a look. The mountain goats leapt nimbly up the slope, semicolon, no humans could follow them. So let's make sure that our parameters, our truths have been met. Does the first clause have a subject and a verb? Yes, it does. Mountain goats is the subject. Leapt is leapt up is the predicate, or not the predicate, sorry, the main verb. The predicate would be this whole chunk here, right? Leapt nimbly up the slope. So the first clause has the correct components. Second clause, what is the subject here? Very good. Humans. Do we have a main verb? Could follow? Correct. So we have both of the pieces we need for it to be a complete clause. So parameter number two, are the ideas linked? Yes, they're both talking about climbing this steep slope. Number three, are they equally important? Well, as the writer, I've decided that they are, and so ding, 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 the semicolon works here. Okay, number two, Sidney Crosby is the most complete hockey player in the world. Semicolon, he can score, pass, kill penalties, and motivate his teammates. Do we have subjects in both clauses? Crosby, he, yes. Do we have verbs? Is and can score, pass, kill, and motivate. So yes, we have our verbs. Are they linked? Yes, they're both talking about Sydney and his skills as a hockey player. And are they equal as the writer I have deemed that they are? Excellent. Okay, so obviously you know that I'm going to ask you to practice these new sentence components. So I would like you to try to use all of the different tools that we've learned in this video. So that will be all 4 types of the PLMPs. It will be both placements of the scoopable phrases, and I would like you to try to write 3 sentences with semicolons. So you can do that in your notebook, but I'm also going to, of course, put a worksheet up on the website to accompany this mini lecture. Awesome, thank you very much.